Welcome to the Colts Squad Show. I'm your host, Derek Schultz, and I now wish every day was NFL trade deadline day.
And I'm Zach Hicks, and I'm basically eating my words every day since they made a massive trade at the trade deadline. I was trying to pamper everyone for like close it down or whatever, but massive trade for the Colts.
And I'm Jake Arthur, and I hope you guys don't mind if we get a little bit saucy today.
Ooh.
Colts Nation, rise up. It's the Colts Squad. Everything Indianapolis Colts every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Circle City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. It's time to squad up. The Colts Squad Show starts now.
How we doing, everydayers? Happy Wednesday and welcome to the Colts Squad Show. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I'm Derek Schultz, Indy Sports Talker, columnist for the IBJ, and you everydayers know Zach Hicks and Jake Arthur, the dynamic duo from Locked On Colts. Your first listen every day. Alan Pinkett returns to the squad for Sunday's post-game show. He's got our Locked On College Football show hanging out and traveling for that, so we'll miss Alan today, but he'll be back, and we'll be back to full strength coming up on Sunday for the post-game show. Colts coming off a loss. I kind of forgot that they lost, right? Because those feelings quickly evaporated in the wake of yesterday's bombshell trade for Jets cornerback Sauce Gardner. We'll talk about that deal, what it means for the Colts, while also discussing the cost. Obviously, two number ones, A.D. Mitchell, for the five people that still cared about A.D. Mitchell, still, a guy that was a day two pick. Pros and cons of making the move, right? We'll also talk about what this now means for the Colts Super Bowl window, not just in 2025, but beyond. And then we'll do our usual overreactions and underreactions from week 8. I think we might have some overreactions, certainly from that performance in Pittsburgh, maybe some overreactions to the Sauce Gardner trade yesterday, and then take a first look at the Falcons and a tricky trip coming up here to Germany as the Colts make one of their rare trips overseas for an international game. But Zach, you had kind of alluded to it in the cold open that we do. We put up pictures of Trey Hendrickson on YouTube, and we talked about the Colts being trade deadline buyers, and we were putting it in all caps, but secretly, the three of us were kind of thinking to ourselves, they're not going to make a big splash, right? It's the NFL trade deadline. There are no big splashes. But now that we've had 24 hours to think about it, are you still on board, or are you still sauced up about one of the Colts' biggest trades in franchise history?
Yeah, what an absolute roller coaster that this trade was, because we were on here on every squad show, every Locked On Colts regular show, just being like, yeah, the Colts are probably going to make a trade. They're going to get a corner in here. They're going to get an Alontae Taylor. They're going to get, a decent pass rusher, because that's what the NFL trade deadline is. You go get a Draymond Jones for a 5th round pick. You don't get Sauce Gardner for 2 firsts. It's more of a hockey or a baseball or a basketball thing that you see these big trades in season. But the Jets shocked the football world by trading away 2 superstar players in Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams. And the Colts were obviously the first domino in that, getting Sauce Gardner for 2 first-round picks. Look, we can talk about the ramifications of giving up 2 first-round picks all we want, and I'm sure we're going to get into that in the cons segment of this first segment here. But at the end of the day, man, if you're a team that's sitting at 7-2, the number 1 team in the AFC right now, boasting the number 1 offense in the league, and a defense I think has fought pretty hard despite some of their limitations and their injuries and some of the issues they've had. You had a chance to go out and get a 25-year-old all-pro player at a premium position. We talk about the premium positions in the NFL being, on the edges in the trenches, edge rusher and offensive tackle, corner and wide receiver, and quarterback. If you can get one of those type of players at an all-pro level, it's a high price tag, but of course it's a high price tag. We're talking about an all-pro at corner, So to pair him with the potential of Mooney Ward and Kenny Moore II in this secondary, my film nerd aspect of this is just so excited to see what this does for the defense. So, again, we could talk about the price tag and everything that comes with it for sure, but the pros are just, this makes your defense so much better, and one thing that takes down the value of a cornerback, like a star cornerback, is the fact that you can just throw away from them. Pat Surtain, fantastic corner in Denver, but he's not going to get his hand on every single pass because you just throw at the other corner all the time, right? When Mooney Ward gets back, who do you throw at with this Colts defense? Oh, you want to throw at Mooney Ward? Awesome. I've been begging for quarterback to throw the ball at him all year because he's been great when he's played. And Sauce Gardner, you want to throw at him? Okay, 2-time first team All-Pro. Sure, throw the ball at him. Throw it at Kenny Moore, our best playmaker on defense. Like this is something that I think, because you have multiple guys, like there's not a way that this like takes down the value of one of them, because someone's going to have to get targeted, but they're all really good cover guys. So I think just from an on-field perspective, just adding a player of this caliber is fantastic for the Colts defense.
Yeah, I think this just opens up kind of a world of opportunities. And as we know with this cornerback group, someone is always hurt at all times. You know what I mean? So ideally, everyone healthy, you have Ward and Sauce on the field at the same time. But if one of them's down, you still have the other one up. So it's like there's really no drop off. And on the very positive times where you have everyone, including Kenny, and you have Cam Bynum in the back, that's a secondary that is hard to contest with, because if you're a quarterback, you have to wait a little bit longer for your guys to get open. Lou Anarumo is scheming up, guys lining up in different places or bailing on one place and going to another. So the confusion is there, the peak performance is there. And then we've talked quite a bit about like the trickle down effect for the rest of the defense. It helps out your pass rush. Like the pass rush for the Colts has been productive in terms of like winning some matchups and getting pressure, but they just haven't been winning quick enough to turn it into sacks necessarily. But now, if you got a couple high-end cover corners out there, well, maybe that buys you the extra little millisecond you need for those guys to get to the quarterback. So this is just an outstanding move, and kind of like my big brain thing of it this year and the next coming couple years is you have got to make moves. You have to make impactful moves to compete at the top. You see the Eagles do stuff like this. You see the Chiefs do stuff like this. And those teams also have quarterbacks that you're going to have to defend. So you got to get pressure against Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, but you're going to have people line up against their receivers too, because especially those guys can buy time and, make really unique, magical plays well after the play should have ended. And you got to have guys that can stick to those receivers too. So this is just a thing where, it is all chips in. You have to pay to play, and the Colts are here to play, and they want to be there at the end. Like there's nothing about this move to me that says, we're going to the playoffs. It's we're going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like I think to take advantage of this kind of down year in the AFC.
Yeah, and you're not saying like Colts are guaranteed to go to the Super Bowl, but it's what the Colts are thinking internally when you make a move like this.
That's what their goal clearly is. Yeah,
right. And real quick before I let Derek get a word in here, I want to answer this comment here from Michigan Wolverines, because he's in a lot of our squad shows. He asked how this trade affects Jalen Jones, and I guess also Mekhi Blackmon would factor into that as well. Jones will likely get the start this week while Mooney Ward is still coming back from his concussion. But do you guys remember what Tyler Warren did for Mo Alley-Cox in this offense? It redefined what Mo Alley-Cox was for this offense and got him back in a role that fits him better. And as a result, we're seeing the best version of Mo Alley-Cox in years with this Colts team. I think that adding a corner like this does the same thing for like a Jalen Jones, where it gets him into that like dime package corner role where you can use him as a specialist. He can be an outside corner with Mooney Ward traveling in the slot on dime coverage calls. He can be a guy who matches up with tight ends. He can be this kind of extra weapon, and it redefines his role. And I think it leads to just better play across the board there for even a guy like Jalen Jones. So when you add more talent, it helps everyone else on defense. Everybody eats. We say that with the offense. I know the Chiefs have said that with their offense, but the Colts offense is really the offense where everybody eats. But in a sense, it's kind of like that on defense too. The more talent you have, it helps everyone hit their potential and hit where they want to go.
Yeah, I think there's just something intoxicating too about the fact that they're really truly going for it, where I think the process for Ballard is largely been the right one, even if the result hasn't always been there. But I'll admit that even somebody that has defended Chris Ballard's process, I've gotten antsy, right? Because I'm tired of 8-9, 9-8, go nowhere seasons. And that's sort of where the Colts have been. They haven't been bad, but they just haven't really been any good, and they haven't mattered. And you make a move like this and it just changes things. It changes the excitement level, and people were already excited and geeked up. But Zach, I know Colts Film Room, a friend of yours and a guy that I really respect as well. He's been on this show. He was one of the few that kind of the knee-jerk reaction was, oh man, I don't like it. I think he said mortgaging the future, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I'm kind of looking at it and saying, from an aspect of maybe I was antsy, but the AFC being down, the fact that there's really no dominant force in the NFL through the first half of the season that has emerged. I mean, yeah, we can give the benefit of the doubt to the Eagles and the Chiefs and teams like that have been there, done that, right? But for the most part, there hasn't been like this dominant force of, oh man, you got no chance against this squad. And, this offense being, I understand what it was last week in Pittsburgh, but through the majority of this season, looking as elite as it has, I think it makes a lot of sense to push the chips in now. And the thing about 2-1s is a lot. And then you throw in AD Mitchell as a kicker. I mean, it's a lot. It's a significant trade package. But the Colts' perspective is that the hope is that that's the, 27 and, God willing, 32nd pick in the draft, right? Not the 5th pick and the 12th pick in the draft. And I think that's the way that they have to approach it. But part of me is just kind of like the timing of this is what really makes sense. Yes, the move makes sense and logistically and all of that. And Sauce Gardner is a great player and he fits and he's probably going to help the pass rush and send ripple effects through the entire defense. But the timing of it just felt right for me too.
Yeah, and let's be honest about this. This is an overpay for sure. And look, in the NFL, first-round picks are as valuable as it gets. You get 5 years of team control, of cheap team control, essentially, in a league, in a salary cap league. Those cheap team control options are insanely valuable as long as you're hitting on those options. So yeah, it's certainly an overpay, but you're paying for a 25-year-old all-pro with a very, very reasonable contract over the next 3 seasons. You're going to have to overpay to get a player of that quality, So I completely understand where Ben Colts Film Room is coming from with that concern because, you don't really care as much about the first round pick after this season. The Colts are going to be in the playoffs. That's going to be a 20+ pick. But defense and especially cornerback play is extremely volatile from year to year. And there's a really real scenario where the Colts are not a playoff team next year, despite going all in because of injuries and all this stuff. And it's hard to give up that first round pick when you don't really know. Like, it would have been great if there was a condition on that second pick to Colts make the playoffs next year. So then it's 2 20+ picks, but that's just not how the world works. You have to be willing to risk it, to get a player of Sauce Gardner. And I'm with you, Derek. For all the risk that it is, there is something that's just so freeing about a team just going all in because that this is like the big home run swing. You're either going to make solid contact and that ball is going to go over the fence, or it's going to be like the worst strike ever and you're going to fall on your face and everyone's going to laugh at you. That's kind of where this is going here, and I respect that. I respect that from a general manager who has played it safe mostly. He's made these moves in the past where it's like, oh, I'm giving up a first round pick for Carson Wentz, but I'm not really going to pay for an edge rusher with that because I don't really believe in Carson Wentz. It's like, you gave up a first round pick for him though. You show some gall and go for it with the guy that you're investing in, but he's never really built around a quarterback before and had enough faith in a quarterback or the offense or the team in general. So this is him basically saying, I believe in this offense. I believe in what Shane Steichen's doing on that side of the ball with Daniel Jones. And I believe in Lou Anarumo for sure. I mean, gosh, he really believes in Lou Anarumo. And he's showing that commitment to them by saying, I'm going to make the riskiest move of my career. And this could be the move that ends up with me out of Indy in a couple of years, because if this backfires, there's not really much coming back from it because you're giving up those first round picks. But there is something freeing and respectful about that. Go all in every now and then. If it blows up, cool. This is your one chance anyway. Why not swing? So many guys just go down in this passive mindset and don't really swing for it. You got to respect a guy going for it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I'd rather have a general manager and a team that is willing to make these risky moves to try to get you into that Super Bowl and get you that ring than someone who's comfortable just skating by and maybe making the playoffs just to be a first round exit, just to save face and save their job. I respect going for it. Even if this blows up and it ages poorly, when you have a 7-2 team with a historically great offense, go for it. I love it from that perspective.
I'm right there with you. And it's like, if you're an NFL GM, you almost can't win, because I think leading up to the trade deadline, we all saw people say, Ballard's sitting on his hands, he's not going to do anything. And then boom, makes the most significant trade of his career and arguably of Indianapolis Colts history. And it's like an overpay. And it's like, well, which is it, guys? Do you want him to do something or not? But no, I think he was so willing to put this much into it because I think he truly feels for the first time that this might be a Super Bowl team. this is a move worth swinging for. And he mentioned it when he released his statement. They liked him coming out of Cincinnati. So it's a player they already had conviction about, and he has proven them right through his performance with the Jets. And, I think they think putting him in a better defense, because like he was incredible when the Jets defense was good. And then it's kind of petered off in the last couple of years when the entire Jets organization hasn't been good. But you put him back on a good team with a good defense, and he's part of it. And he's not even just the guy that has to carry it. He is part of like a larger thing that involves other really good players, that we're going to see the best of him again, and maybe even cranking it up to a new level. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm with you guys. I just appreciate the effort. Again, building through the draft is noble if you hit on all your draft picks, but like that hasn't necessarily been the case. Like they've got plenty of decent guys, like good players, but they haven't built it like Bill Polian built it. You know what I mean? Like Bill Polian hit it out of the park all the time. And that's how they built a Super Bowl contender. In the modern day, if you're not going to nail all your draft picks, you got to do something like this occasionally. And like I mentioned, look at the Eagles. The Eagles do not care. Like their objective is to win the Super Bowl every year. They'll figure everything else out after that, but they make these kind of moves. The Rams buy championship appearances. Really, they're the F them picks team. And you know what? It largely works. It got them a Super Bowl. Like, draft picks are valuable. Yes, we are big draft nerds here on this show, but sometimes you just gotta make a move like this. And yeah, it's gonna hurt. You don't have those first round picks, whatever, but you're not in the market for, Arvell Reese or Jeremiah Love or like any of the like uber elite players. Like, just go for it. Like, is there a Sauce Gardner in this draft? Probably not.
Yeah, and really quick, just because I know we're running late on this, but Chris Ballard's actually been one of the better drafting GMs, in my opinion, across the league, getting guys like Alec Pierce, Bernhardt Ryman, Nick Cross in that one draft there. Like, he's had a lot of misses, don't get me wrong, but every GM has misses. He's built this team mostly through the draft. You got to sometimes take chances, though, to get your team above and beyond. So I respect it from that perspective for sure.
What is Indy's Super Bowl window now and in the future after adding Sauce Gardner and subtracting 2 first-round picks in A.D. Mitchell? We'll tell you next when the Colts Squad Show returns. This portion of the Colts Squad Show brought to you by our friends at BILT. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, you might as well get something for it. And that's where BILT comes in. BILT is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards you can actually use. When you pay rent through BILT, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But BILT isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. I love that with BILT, your rent finally works for you. You're earning points every month on something you already have to pay. That's because BILT makes everyday life feel more rewarding, from your neighborhood to your travel plans. Turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbilt.com/lockedonnfl. That's joinbilt.com. joinbilt.com/lockedonnfl, and make sure to use that link so they know that we sent you. And we're back on the Colts Squad Show, Wednesday edition. Thanks so much for joining us alongside Zach Hicks and Jake Arthur of Locked On Colts. I'm Derek Schultz. I like what you had to say, Jake, there about peeling him off the Jets, because the Colts have used that blueprint of, hey, let's take this player off of one of the worst organizations in American pro sports and see if he can work here. And it worked with Daniel Jones. So let's take another one off one of the worst organizations in American pro sports and see how that works out.
That's your New York stuff coming out. You got to say the 2 worst organizations are New York run.
It is a miserable existence. I can tell you that. Jets and Giants fans, my high school friends hit me up all the time about it. Let's talk Super Bowl window though, guys. Because as much as this is a win now move, now is kind of a relative term. Right now in 2025, sure, the Colts are 7-2, and it looks like that, they got a 2-game lead in the AFC South, and it looks like the AFC isn't great. So yes, now, but now certainly seems to extend into 2026 too. I mean, especially when you look at Gardner's contract, it's very team friendly over the next 2 years. The reasonable cap hits before things start to ramp up in 27. And if you go back to that offseason after 23, when they brought everybody back, a lot of these guys that were re-signed after that season those deals carry through 26. So if you look at upcoming projecting out Colts free agents, Pittman's deal, Buckner's deal, Quentin Nelson's deal, Taylor, I think Kenny Moore is on that list. They're all free agents in 27 with where it sits right now. And part of the reason I only know that is because I'm thinking, hey, when can the Colts tear it down after last season, right? So it's kind of a morbid way. It shows how much we've done sort of a 180 here. But, Zach, as much as this is about right now, I think in a way, if we're going to kind of look at it, on a micro level, it's a 2-year window, right? Where you make this deal and you're thinking, okay, this is us kind of going for it in 25 and 26 and then sort of reevaluating where the Colts are after that season.
Yeah, I think internally that's the thought process is we have the rest of this year and next year to really go all chips in and go for that Super Bowl. But I want to bring it even more of a micro level down and just talk about this season where this is the year where the AFC looks very wide open. You're adding, again, a player like Sauce Gardner alongside of Mooney Ward to hopefully make this defense a top 10 unit to pair with your top 1 unit on offense this season. And the big thing about Super Bowl windows in the NFL is they close so quickly. You think that you're building something great and there's going to be this linear progression year after year where it's like, oh, we made it to the championship game this year. Next year, we're going to make it to the Super Bowl. The year after that, we're going to win the Super Bowl. But that's just not how it goes in the NFL. What's the best aspect of this in the NFL right now? Look at the Washington Commanders. Last year, the NFC Championship game, super young quarterback that has this magic about him. The team they had the Hail Mary bounce go their way. Like, everything is going perfect. They are in that championship game last year. And yeah, they got blown out by the Eagles, but we're building something here. They make the all-in move of Tunsil and Deebo Samuel in the offseason. And what's the result? Their quarterback gets multiple injuries. They are one of the worst teams in the NFC this year, and they're not going to make the playoffs. And now they're a very old roster that is taking a huge step back. And I'm not saying every team goes through that, but that just shows what the Super Bowl window is like in the NFL. So you can project out next year will be this team that can compete for a Super Bowl as well, but you never know. So that's why I think that it's so valuable to get him in during the season right now where you are already on this big run because you don't know if this is going to be your 1 year of this. Injuries could pile up next year. Guys could regress. A lot of things can happen from year to year in the NFL. So just being as micro as possible about this, this is your year to go for it. If it comes up short, it comes up short, but how often are you going to have an offense of this caliber? How often are you going to have the chance to put Sauce Gardner next to Mooney Ward, next to Kenny Moore? Because you're not going to get many years after this to put all those guys together with how salary cap is and with the age of those players, especially Moore and Ward. So this is your chance to go for it. So on a very micro level this year, I understand just really swinging for it. Now, again, I think internally they're hoping for 2026 as well. That's why you give up that first round pick for next year too, because you're thinking you're going to be all chips in for there. And Sauce Gardner's contract is very you're very easy to work around, and you can get more help in here in the offseason because you're only paying him $9.5 million next season against the cap. But I think especially for this year, because you have no clue what that window is going to look like next season. So getting him in for this run this year where we're the number one team in the AFC, we have a chance at this. Let's get Sauce Gardner in here and just really go for it. I think that's important in the NFL because windows shut fast and they just blow up in your face and then you have to rebuild from there. We've seen it with countless teams, not just only the Washington Commanders this year.
And I think the Colts sense that because this, obviously, I don't think it's a move they would have made in the offseason. They did it because they sense they've got something really rolling here. And NFL teams and personnel will be the first ones to tell you it's a year-to-year league. There's things they're happy about and would be like to build on from the previous year. But as far as assuming you're going to get better, they don't assume that at all. Everything is kind of starting from scratch. So I'm right there with you. And don't worry about being morbid, Derek, because we have had that nuclear detonator button discussion before about everyone's contracts coming up and everything. There are going to be interesting discussions still to be had. But yeah, there's only a handful of guys with guaranteed money next year. He's one of them. But so this move, it definitely is. It's the big circle is on these next couple years, obviously. But, they have Sauce for a while. They've got Cam Bynum for a while. Um, yeah, it's
Bernhard Raimann for a while. You'll extend
right.
Quentin
Yeah,
Nelson, Daniel Jones. You'll probably have. So like, it's
yeah,
not like the
they're
window shuts
gonna.
completely after this, but the
Mhm.
window with like DeForest Buckner in his prime, Grover Stewart in his prime, Kenny Moore in his prime,
Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor in his prime. I mean, he's a running back. We see what happens there. I understand going for it with this team for sure. Not to interrupt you, Jake, but just that
Oh
kind of
no,
add
you're
on to
good.
what you were saying.
Yeah, no, they're definitely trying to strike while the iron's hot because they do have some building blocks in those one guys you mentioned, but they have guys who are going to be exiting their prime as well. And like they really owe it to DeForest Buckner to go all in. Like if there is one guy they have had to sell on believing in the process here, it's Buckner, and Buckner above everybody else really deserved this move.
Yeah, no, for sure. I get it. Again, you're guys like Buckner and Grover and Kenny, Nelson. I mean, Nelson will get extended, and Buckner will probably get
Mhm.
extended again too. But you don't know about those other guys there, and you
Mhm.
want to you kind of owe it to them to push the chips in while you can, especially because again, you have Sauce Gardner for so cheap over the next 2 seasons. Like you owe it to yourself to go all in when you have these cheap years with him. Because after that, it jumps up to a normal contract, and then you can operate like a normal team. But you can basically get these 2 freebie years with this all-pro corner. You're paying him an average of $5 million per year over this year and next year,
It's
like
crazy.
for an all-pro guy on his second contract. So yeah, it's time to go all in, and I totally respect it.
Yeah, and you're always going to have the people that say like you had mentioned, Zach. Well, Bauer's going to sit on his hands, right? And then he doesn't, and they say, "Well, wait a minute, now it's an overpay, and what are you doing? And we didn't mean that." And you want to end up going all in here. You're not ever going to be able to sort of please everybody, and certainly that this move could blow up, just like other blockbuster trades have blown up. I'm sure people were really excited about Herschel Walker all those years ago, and that ended up not really working. That's the ultimate, like using your draft capital that you get from trading a big time player and turning it into like championship level success with that Dallas Minnesota deal. So I'm not shut off to that sort of being the case here, but I just felt like A, the time was right, and B, sort of the situation was right for the Colts to sort of go ahead and do this. And now you look at this roster, which, another complaint that people had was, well, there's not enough good players at an impact position. Well, guess what? Sauce Gardner plays an impact position. So,
Yeah.
and Mooney Ward plays an impact position, right? They've invested in these areas that people have been complaining about. And I know edge hasn't worked out all the way. You've invested in edge, though. You used another one in 24 in Latu to invest there. So I do think that Bauer deserves some credit for, it would have been easy for him to be, I think, really stubborn and really safe and just sort of kind of cruise along. And I think maybe there were some times where he was trying to protect himself and all of that. But as much as we sort of were skeptical about, and this is everybody, Steichen and Bauer and everybody saying we're trying to win now and being like, yeah, really win now? What's your ceiling? Like 10-7? If things go right, this has gone off like gangbusters so far through 8 games.
Yeah, no, they've proven us wrong in a lot of ways. And honestly, you said you kind of hit the nail on the head where it's like, oh, go out there and get an impact player. And people were like, oh, why not an edge rusher? That's what they really needed. Trey Hendrickson wasn't available. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm putting that out there. I know the insiders need to push that to get their clicks. Trey Hendrickson's not available. The Bengals don't trade players of that caliber. They just don't do that. Max Crosby was not available. Myles Garrett, absolutely not available. These guys were not even in conversations. But the Colts, through weeks of working, were able to kind of see that the Jets were willing to trade Sauce Gardner. And if you can't get an impact pass rusher, the next best thing is to get an impact corner. Because what directly impacts rushing the passer? Coverage. Coverage impacts it. Look at Gus Bradley's defenses the last couple of years. They sit back in this zone coverage with weaker corners. And no matter how quick the Colts are winning up front in the pass rush department, it didn't matter because the ball was out in 2 seconds. Now with Louis Anarumo, they're going to play a lot more press. They're going to disrupt at the line of scrimmage. They're going to make quarterbacks hold the ball up to 3 seconds. And they're going to rely on guys like Buckner and Leatu Latu and Adetomiwa Adebore, who played really good football this year, to get home in 3 seconds instead of 2.5 seconds. So yeah, like it's the next best thing you get. Like, yeah, ideally I'd rather have a Max Crosby for 2 first-round picks than a Sauce Gardner because, yeah, Max Crosby's an awesome pass rusher. But if you can't get that and Gardner's actually available, make your coverage just the best in the league and make that better for a better situation for your pass rushers up front. So I think he did the most impactful move that you possibly could make for what this team needed, especially considering the fit in this defense. Oh my gosh, it's the perfect fit for this defense. We've done video after video about it this week, Jake and I. So I'm not going to go into it even more right here, but it's a perfect fit. Like it works. So yeah, this was the most impactful move that was feasibly available for the Colts. They made the move, get him in here, protect him with Mooney Ward in a lot of situations, and they're going to thrive in coverage as a result.
I am also very unbothered by the 2 first-round picks because, again, we've said it. You do it because you think you're getting to the Super Bowl. You're going to win a Super Bowl. Well, ask any fan, if you win a Super Bowl, do you care that you gave up 2 first-round picks to achieve that? No. Take the next 5 first-round picks if you want.
30. Take 30 of them.
There's fans who say, take my leg, take my manhood for a championship. You know what I mean? Who cares about the 2 first-round picks? Like, if it gets you a Super Bowl, no one cares.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing in my house. My wife is a Red Sox fan. I'm a Yankees fan. They have been clearly better over the past 10 years, but the Sox won that one championship in 18, and the Yankees haven't won one since 08, so they're living off that the whole way. Sorry, I always insert baseball, I feel like, into this show. My fault. 6 turnovers and Daniel Jones regression. Do the Colts have the best DB room in the league? We're going to talk about what are under and overreactions next when the Colts Squad Show returns here on the Locked On Colts Network. This portion of the Colts Squad Show brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back. That's another sport that I really like besides the NFL, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. It's a lot of fun. For a shot at a bigger payout, it keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel. Again, new customers, $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. The official sports betting partner of the NBA, FanDuel. And we're back on the Locked On Colts Squad Show. Thanks so much for joining us. Jake Arthur, Zach Hicks, Derek Schultz, Alan Pinkett will return for our post-game show after the game in Germany against the Falcons. By the way, we'll talk Atlanta in the final segment of the show, but it's time for over and under reactions. I have some overreactions that I want to touch on in the wake of the Pittsburgh game. Again, I've completely forgotten about the Pittsburgh game, so we have to remind ourselves that was a couple of days ago. I wanted to know if this is an underreaction. Is it an underreaction, just kind of piggybacking on what we've been talking about in the first 2 segments, to say that this is the best defensive secondary room in the NFL?
I mean, I think it's the best cornerback room for sure. You might have some safeties that are playing a bit better, and maybe just in terms of like connectivity that we're seeing across secondaries in the NFL. Like I think the Rams are playing with such great connectivity in their secondary right now. I think there are a couple other teams that are playing just with great chemistry, but in terms of talent, I mean, does it get much better than 2 number 1 corners, like 2 all-pro caliber corners, a slot corner that's actually made a Pro Bowl? How many slot corners in the NFL have made a Pro Bowl? You know, like true slot corners in their career. It just doesn't happen. And then you throw in a guy like Cameron Bynum, who's played great football in his career, Nick Cross, who might make a Pro Bowl this year. I think he's probably going to make a Pro Bowl this season, with the counting stats being on the number 1 team in the NFL right now. So yeah, I think on paper, this is the best secondary in the league. And then you get just, again, like, I just think what you can do with them in terms of their length, their size, their speed, their ability to play press man and disrupt at the line of scrimmage. Like, there's no secondary in the NFL that I would rather give Lou Anarumo. I will say that. If you go around all 32 teams, put them in a bucket and say, Lou, you can pick whatever secondary you want to go with what you want to do on defense, this is what he would pick. Absolutely what he would pick.
And that's all you're trying to do, right? I mean, you're trying to fit it for the blueprint that you want to execute. So you'd almost rather have just the fit guys than the star guys, even though I think, Jake, they kind of cross into both camps when you're talking about Sauce and Mooney Ward and guys like that.
Yeah, and I think, you know, when you were bringing up teams across the league that have done it really well, I was kind of thinking about the Eagles last year. And obviously the Colts don't have the pass rush that they do, but you look at the impact that partnering Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, the impact that had, like that's impactful. Like, if the Colts can get a diet version of that defense, then that's incredible, because that defense had one of the all-time Super Bowl performances. So, if it helps, I mean, Buckner's always going to do his thing, but if it helps Buckner get to the quarterback quicker, but it helps Latu's numerous wins result in actual sacks, beyond his 2.5 last week, then it's going to be good. Zach has explained a few times that the linebackers can now be used to blitz even more. Like Zaire Franklin is a pretty effective blitzer, I think. You have more defensive backs on the field now. Again, you got to find something for Mekhi Blackman to do. We know Jalen Jones is going to be a good matchup guy for like tight ends. Like I'm already looking at Kansas City in a few weeks. You got Ward hopefully back, and you got Sauce, and you just park Jalen Jones on Travis Kelce. That could be a nice little matchup there. But you got all these tools at your disposal now. And we know Lou Anarumo wants to get weird with it. Like, if you give him all his guys healthy, he's going to confuse the quarterback.
Real quick, I'm putting Ward on Travis Kelce. I'm not putting Jones on Travis Kelce in that game. I'm putting my best cover guy on Kelce.
That's fine.
Yeah, but I think for the rest of the season, for sure, Jones on
Rashee Rice, though.
He doesn't run past the line of scrimmage. All his catches are in the backfield. I can't cover that.
But isn't it nice to be in a position where you don't have to put Jalen Jones on the other team's best guy, right, or you don't have to put Dallas Flowers on the other team's best guy? You know what I mean? Like, think about the complete makeover that this room has made over the last couple of months.
Dallas Flowers and Samuel Womack and Jalen Jones.
Yeah. While we're in this segment, real quick though, talking about underreaction, overreaction, I think we've been underreacting the last couple of weeks on how much better the Colts' run defense has been. And I know this is getting too positive off a loss, so we will get into some offense stuff with the Colts for sure. But I think we've been underreacting how much better the run defense has been just across the board. Like, they allowed that huge run against the Titans on third down. That was like a 60-yard run. But outside of that, the Titans had like 2 yards per carry in that game. Steelers had 1.7, and they were a pretty good rushing offense coming into that game with their 13 personnel package. We get to the Raiders game, they shut that down. It seems like since they got Jermaine Pratt, the run defense has been so much cleaner across the board. And again, this goes to the optimism of adding a Sauce Gardner, right? Where it's like, okay, our pass defense is going to be a lot better, so teams are going to try to run the ball. Well, the Colts run defense has been much better as well. I think you're seeing all 11 guys really buying in run defense, and having a Jermaine Pratt covering up that big hole they had next to Zaire Franklin, with all the linebackers they were putting out there. I think it's just made them so much better across the board in run defense. So I think we are kind of underreacting to how much better that has been, because we're just so excited to talk about the pass defense now with Sauce Gardner.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because when I was thinking back to the game and rewatching it and everything, I was trying to, in the moment, you're just so dismayed by what's happening. Like, it's hard to see any light at the end of the tunnel in that situation. But when I thought back to it, I was like, they were awesome against the run. I think it was 38 yards for Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And I mean, they had great field position a lot of the time, and they had some short touchdowns, but there was plenty of times they ran between the 20s, and the Colts had it sniffed out immediately. And I think Jermaine Pratt, like you mentioned, is a huge part of that. I see him around the ball in the backfield all the time. Grover Stewart is playing nuts right now. Nick Cross has taken his game even to another level, sniffing things out behind the line of scrimmage from his safety spot. Like, they're getting really, really good returns in the run game right now, which is huge for Sunday because Bijan Robinson is incredible.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's going to be a big challenge. I'm kind of keeping the positivity train going. Sorry, the Sauce Gardner trade and everything.
I'll get us negative. Don't worry. I'll let you do positive. I'll get us
negative. I have
Don't
one
worry.
more on the positivity train. I think the entire overreaction is actually just Sunday's game. I think there were a lot of things in that game that were flukish. Certainly 6 turnovers is just flukish. Like, that's a disaster, but just kind of a confluence of events. The Steelers' backs were up against the wall. The Colts were due for – I'm a big believer in a 17-game season. You're always going to have one game that is way out of line, either in a positive or a negative direction, and I felt like maybe that was the Colts. Hopefully that was the Colts. One game in a negative direction in a in that loss to Pittsburgh. I just felt like there were some things that were difficult to repeat that the Steelers did, that the Colts did, and a combination of those things. I not to say that the Colts aren't going to lose again this year or anything like that, or even, lose by 7, 10, 17 points, whatever it is. I just don't feel like what happened there. Like, there was one guy that was a college buddy of mine was texting me. He's like, "That's it. Colts can't play outdoors." So they're not, they can't, they got to be home for the playoffs the whole way because they can't play outdoor. And I'm like, buddy, just like relax. Like it's one game. It was a bad afternoon. I think the overreaction is that the Colts carriage just turned into a pumpkin suddenly because they played poorly in Pittsburgh.
Well, hey, good thing is they're the 1 seed and they play in a dome, so they don't have to play
there you
outdoors.
Go.
It's all good. Yeah,
there you go.
But I think to a degree, I understand there is some concerns there. So this is, I guess, me bringing a little bit negative here, where the Steelers just outplayed them across the board on defense in the game. It was a tough one for the Colts offense. I will say you're also probably being a little too generous, Derek, by saying every team gets one game like this in the 17-game season. Every team gets like multiple games probably where things are just going to go wrong for you. I was texting a buddy about the game too, and he was like, "Yeah, I thought we outplayed them for majority of the day. It's just we had the 6 worst plays of the day." And those were the turnovers that the Colts had. And that you can't win in the NFL when you have the worst plays. You're kind of defined in the NFL by the worst plays you make. And that's what happened with the Colts in this game. So I do agree with you. It was certainly a regression type game where they came back down to earth, but they kind of crashed through the earth and fell to like the crust, or fell through to the core of the earth, essentially, with all the interceptions and fumbles. So it's not going to be like this every Sunday. Just keep hold of the ball. And if you want like pure optimism on this, they had like 3 or 4 chances to bring this into like a 1-score game with like real time left on the game, despite being at 3 turnovers, despite being at 4 turnovers, despite being at 5 turnovers. And then they just made the extra one afterwards that ruined their chances to come back. So they were kind of in the game for most of the day, despite being awful in the turnover department. So it was a kind of a game from hell for the Colts, but I think they can just flush it out of their system and move on.
Yeah, it was one of those days where just everything was kind of going the Steelers' way. Nothing was really going right for the Colts necessarily. I mean, I had seen plenty of the Steelers leading up to this, and they played against the Colts like they have not played any other game this year. They were a team that played relatively undisciplined and missed a lot of tackles, and they took some poor angles at times. I didn't really notice any missed tackles, or I thought fundamentally they were awesome in that game. The linebackers played well, which they had not been playing. Everyone came to play. The pass rush was crazy. For some reason, the Colts offensive line played pretty poorly in that, which then helps lead to Daniels' bad performance. You can't really get Jonathan going because you're not able to establish the tenor of the game that you normally do, that you have throughout the season. The Colts never win in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was honoring that 2005 Super Bowl team. So all those guys were there and there was extra juice in the air. It was just one of those days where all the ingredients were there for Pittsburgh. And I'm going to give the Colts the benefit of the doubt because even when they lost against the Rams, there was a lot of common themes in those 2 losses, but it didn't look like this. And the Colts were even leading that game in the 4th quarter against the Rams. It didn't look like this. This year's team doesn't look like one that's going to lay eggs like that often.
Yeah, the funniest stat on the whole season for the Colts is in their 2 losses, 8 turnovers on offense, right? In their 7 wins, 1 turnover on offense. So the key for the Colts is don't turn the football over whatsoever, and they'll win the game. But yeah, I mean, I do think, I guess I don't want to say like an underreaction or overreaction. It's kind of tough to really plant one on here, but I do think that this regression was coming. A regression was coming when it came to turning the football over. And I think that was something that we discussed it a little bit on here, but I don't think we talked about it enough. Overall was there was going to be some regression in terms of turnover luck. Now, I don't expect it to be 6 turnovers in a football game going forward, but there will be times down this stretch here where they're going to have games with 1, 2, maybe 3 turnovers on offense that they're going to have to find a way to win. So I am a little concerned, can they muster out wins when they have those games where the turnovers do pile up a little bit? And does it end up being like this Steelers game where they just keep compiling, you keep falling on the sword over and over again, or do they find a way to bounce back? I think for the most part against the Rams, they did a good job of bouncing back from some turnovers in that game. Is it more like that, or the Cardinals game, they threw that early pick and were able to still move on offense? Is it more like that, or does it happen like the Steelers game where the turnovers come in bunches because they panic and fall apart? I think that's going to be a big thing to watch going forward with this Colts team.
How about this last one, just to kind of slide it in here in the final minute? Underreaction, Colts gave up too early on AD Mitchell.
Ooh, that's a good one. I mean, I get it. I think my thing with it all, I don't think the Colts wanted to give up on him. I
Right.
really don't think they did. They gave him every opportunity to show that he could surpass Pierce. I think the biggest part of this was just Pierce's play kind of led to where you're the Colts, you really can't let him walk, you know? Like if Pierce was just playing like a steady increase from what he was doing in 2023, for instance, then like even with Mitchell being slower developing, you still probably just let Pierce walk and give it to Mitchell. But Pierce has ascended into the, like he's on pace for like on a 17 game pace right now for over 1,000 yards on like 40 catches. You know, he's playing some awesome ball. And I don't think the Colts really wanted to put Mitchell in that trade. I think the Jets specifically wanted him in there.
Mhm.
And I think if you're the Colts where you're looking at this and you're like, we're going to extend Pierce after the season, like it's going to happen for sure. And when you're looking at it, you're like, we can't let the reason why we lost out on Sauce Gardner be this receiver that's going to be our fourth receiver for the foreseeable future. So I don't think they wanted to give up on him, so to speak, but they weren't going to let him be the reason they didn't get Sauce Gardner, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they didn't offer him up in that. The Jets wanted AD. And I think the Colts would have been willing to be patient with him and everything. But just like Zach said, it wasn't realistic. Like, how long can you let the guy sit there and be your fourth, fifth receiver? Like, he's never going to get the ample playing time that way. You're going to keep throwing him a bone 4, 5, 6 snaps a game, and then he's going to become this superstar you hope he no. Like, it just didn't work out necessarily at the speed it probably needed to in order for him to be a hit with them. And I mean, luckily for them, he had some trade value, because I don't know if I've talked about it with you guys or just like kind of in passing or joking in the media room or whatever, but like, what trade value did AD have on his own? Like, very little. So for the Colts to get something out of AD Mitchell without just letting him walk in a year or two, all right, that got you an all-pro cornerback. Like, I'm in. Yeah. And I think the change of scenery will be good for him, because the Jets need him to play a lot more than the Colts do. And I don't really like their quarterback situation, but I think if AD just plays, he'll be good. Like, if he played with the Colts right now, he'd be good. They just have the luxury of allowing him to sit.
Yeah.
Like, even in the game that got him benched, he had almost 100 yards and a touchdown. He just did the dumbest thing possible going into the end zone. So it's like the guy will be fine. Like, I think with playing time, he'll prove his worth, and he might be a star player. It's just not going to be here. And I don't think the Colts pulled the rug too soon. They just did what they had to.
And again, I just want to reiterate at the end, I think this has more to do with Alec Pierce's ascension than AD Mitchell like losing out. Like, Mitchell had some issues for sure. 100% had issues. And there's a reason why he was not seeing snaps over Ashton Dulin in that Raiders game after the Rams game. Like, totally deserved. Especially, I think the holding call was actually worse than the drop fumble, and I still stand by that. But at the end of the day, this decision is made because Alec Pierce has become a star receiver for the Colts. Like, he's been incredible this season. And because you can't let him walk now, it makes this decision a lot easier to just include Mitchell, because there's just no space for him going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Colts head to Germany for a tilt with a talented but erratic Falcons team. We'll take our first look at Atlanta when the Colts Squad Show returns for a final time next. Welcome back, final time on the Colts Squad Show, Wednesday edition, alongside Jake Arthur, Zach Hicks. I'm Derek Schultz. The Colts heading back to the motherland, at least when your last name's Schultz, it's the motherland. Germany, Berlin, for a tilt with Atlanta. I've actually never been there. I've always kind of wanted to go and check it out.
The opportunity. You had the perfect opportunity to go here.
I know. I could probably be on my way there like right now, but that's a lot. That's too much to go.
Yeah, and a little close to the due date, right? I mean, you'd be sweating it a little bit.
Sure. Like, there's a difference between being like a 2-hour plane ride away and being across the ocean. I'm not into that.
I think what's interesting about this game, besides the fact that if I'm not mistaken, this is only the third Colts international game. Is that right?
I think, in Germany, each one,
regular season. Well, so Austria.
That's right. They played a
And then,
preseason game in Tokyo one year, right? Didn't they? Like years and
yes.
years ago,
And then
20 years ago.
they got waxed by the Jaguars in London
Yes.
in like 15 or 16 or whatever it was. So yeah, Tokyo was the other one. I don't think they've been one of the lucky like Mexico or Brazil teams, the one-offs, but
yeah,
I think that's right, Derek.
One of my favorite quotes in Colts history, it goes back to that game in Tokyo. Edgerrin James did not make the trip, and he said, and I'm paraphrasing, the closest that I want to get to Japan is Benihana. And one of my favorite quotes. But this game, I think, takes on a new light. Look, it's a difficult trip. Any NFL team will tell you the same thing. It's weird. It's very you are in your routine, right? As an organization, and I'm not just talking about the players, like the equipment guys and everybody. When you have this Sunday schedule, or even sometimes the mix in the Monday night games, you have this routine, and this very much interrupts this routine. As much as you try to keep things the same, it's hard for them to be the same when instead of going to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, you're going to Berlin, Germany. But I think a new light is kind of shed on this game, Jake, right? Because you look at what's ahead here, bye week, and then Arrowhead. We can talk all we want of Sunday, whatever, it's a fluke and it's a confluence of events and all that. Suddenly you turn around and lose to Atlanta, you're staring a 3-game losing skid right in the face, and that's not where you want to be.
Yeah, you don't want to be sitting there in the bye week on a 2-game skid, looking in the mirror at like and overthinking things without the opportunity to go fix it right away that week. So I'm with you, because again, you got Arrowhead and Chiefs waiting for you when you're done with that bye, and that's not really the team you want to be figuring things out with. So yeah, it's not a must win against Atlanta, but you certainly can't lay another egg. Like, the Colts are the better team. Go out there and look like it. You don't have to beat them by 3 scores like you beat everybody else, but like, win with good feelings coming out of that one. But the international games are just weird, man. And Atlanta's weird. This whole game, I think, is going to be weird because Atlanta is one of those teams that can beat anyone and lose to anyone.
Yeah.
And international games are ones where the best teams can go and lose awfully, and the worst teams can go and look like Super Bowl contenders. Like, there's just nothing to know for certain until kickoff actually happens on Sunday.
Yeah, I just think the big thing for the Colts here is, for me personally, and I'm sure a lot of people around the league feel this, like, it's one thing to lose in the NFL. You're not going to win every game. Just, you can't let it compile and turn into a losing streak. The big thing is to avoid the back-to-back losses, and especially when you're facing the bye week, so you want to come out with this energy because, like, look, guys, you get a rest after this. You get your week off after this to really just, like, get healthy, get it. So come out in this game and throw some haymakers early, like really get into this one, and make sure that it doesn't look like how it did last week against the Steelers. Like, we saw how the Steelers just played against the Colts with their backs against the wall. You want to see the Colts come out with that same energy now with their proverbial backs against the wall, because it's not as dire as the Steelers situation was, obviously, but every win matters. You don't want to have it compound into a 2-game losing streak heading into the bye. So you want them to be ready and physical and just good to go in this one, even with it being a Germany game. And I think the biggest thing when you're playing against a team like the Falcons, who are just so volatile and all over the place, and just, you don't know what version of them you're going to get. Like, yeah, at home, they're a tougher team to face, but they just took the Patriots to the wire on the road, and that was probably their best road performance of the season. So maybe they're turning the corner when it comes to their road performance. But I think for the Colts, like, the key is just don't do the things that swing games toward the underdog. And when I say that, it's control the ball. Don't commit turnovers. Don't commit stupid special teams mistakes, like giving them free downs or big returns or stuff like that. And avoid the pre-snap penalties. That's always the biggest thing. That's like pre-snap penalties and turnovers, the most important thing. I think if the Colts can have a clean game where they don't turn the ball over or turn the ball over one time, whatever it's going to be, and they avoid pre-snap penalties, I don't think there's a team in the league that can beat them. Like we saw with the Steelers and the Rams, the reason why they lost those games is because of the pre-snap penalties and the turnovers. That is why they lost those 2 games. So as long as the Colts can avoid those issues, especially against an underdog like the Falcons, a team that it's not looking great for their coaching staff and front office after the season, the way the year is going for them, you got to really just score early, get on top of them, and make them feel like they're the underdog. And the Colts have done that exceptionally well this season. They just got to get back to what they've been doing. So, the Falcons are a weird team. They're kind of like the Cardinals in that way for me, where it's like, they will take the worst team to the wire, and they'll also take the best team to the wire. Or they'll get blown out by the worst team and take the best team to the wire, like we've seen with them a couple times this year. They're just a really weird team. But for the Colts, just play your game, get back to, mistake-free football, mature football like they were doing before the Steelers game, and just resume everything that you're doing right now.
What gives you the most pause about them, Jake? Because I actually noticed they're the number one, at least from a yardage standpoint, passing defense in the league. But then you go back and look, and Drake May had a decent game against them, and they just gave up 4 touchdowns to Tua like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And you're like, really? Number one pass defense? Is that what you are?
Yeah, it's their pass rush is much improved with Jalen Walker and James Pierce. Like the investments they made in those guys, it's kind of paying off. Arnold Ibikidi, like they've got some guys out there that can get after it a little bit. AJ Terrell is perennially an underrated corner as well. I think they got some young guys in the secondary as well. Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame, who's taking the ball away. So they've got some young guys out there that are really making a big difference on what was a fading defense over the last couple of years. But I'm with Zach on this. Like, if you look at both losses have had a lot of the same themes. And if you look at just the Steelers game, the Steelers scored 24 of their 27 points off of turnovers. You don't give them those bonus possessions and gift them those points. The Colts defense smothered them. Like, that should have been the Colts should have handily won that if the offense just wouldn't have turned it over a half dozen times. And then the penalties as well. Like the Colts had those 2 penalties within like 15 minutes with the receivers not lining up correctly. And I don't think they got points on those drives. And then the Colts defense had 2 15-yard penalties on Steelers drives that did yield points. So like you could see all those mistakes directly led to positive things for the Steelers. And then there was a lot of that same stuff against the Rams as well, especially the turnovers. So just, take care of the ball. Like those are still uncharacteristic mistakes. This isn't a team that turned the ball over. They'd only turned the ball over in 2 games coming into last week. So like they normally take care of the ball. They're not a heavily penalized team either. Like you hate to sound like such a homer, but yeah, like just don't make those stupid mental mistakes and no one can really beat you. The Colts are very good at beating themselves in those instances.
Yeah, and most NFL teams are capable of beating themselves, but for the Colts, when you're the better team, just don't beat yourself in this matchup.
Right.
But to add a little bit of insight on this Falcons team, Divine Diablo was a big part of why their pass defense was so good. Middle linebacker that they got from the Raiders, player that I've wanted for years, but the Colts unfortunately didn't have.
You talk Divine Diablo more than guys
Zaire Franklin.
He's on the
more
team,
than Zaire Franklin. I talked Divine Diablo. He is not playing in this game. He's on IR right now. And that's why we've seen the last couple of weeks that their pass defense has been a lot weaker. Their middle of the field defense has really struggled. They play a lot of single high safety looks. So when you go against teams that have man beaters like Jalen Waddle on the outside, and Drake May can just paint pictures with where he can throw the ball vertically down the field. That's why you've seen them kind of exposed in the last 2 weeks. So good news for anyone who has Alec Pierce in fantasy football, I guess, this week, because Alec Pierce is going to eat against single high type defenses. So I do think the Colts are going to be able to have some success. Teams have been able to run the ball exceptionally well against the Falcons this year as well. So as long as the Colts can come out and get an early lead, it can be the Jonathan Taylor show with their struggling defensive line and the run game and their linebackers. Fun fact, who's starting at linebacker alongside Divine Diablo's replacement? Ronnie Harrison. Ronnie Harrison is starting at linebacker for the Falcons, or at least getting a lot of run out there at linebacker. So I'm not terrified of this Falcons defense. There are some reasons to be concerned. Like Jalen Walker's a really fun player, but with Divine Diablo being out, they are a weaker defense than what they were early in the season. My big concern is really the 2 stars they have on offense, Bijan Robinson and Drake London. That's the biggest aspect of this, where those guys are just next level playmakers and they can turn 5-yard gains into 80-yard touchdowns. They're very, very talented players. So for me with the Colts, it's just contain them. I don't like if Bijan Robinson has 40 touches for 150 yards, fine, whatever. Just limit the explosive plays. limit the explosive, keep the overall explosions down, make him have to get there 5 yards at a time, and I think you have a great chance of winning this game because Michael Penix Jr. has been very up and down this season. And I don't really count on him being a guy who can, go on these like 15 play drives and score touchdowns, and Drake London, if you can contain him to under 10 yards per catch or under, 12 yards per catch, whatever it is, and not give him the explosive 40-yard play over the top, again, make Michael Penix Jr. go just short, like dink and dunk down the field, and you're going to have great success. So contain those 2 star players because those guys are game-changing players. When the Falcons win games, it's because Bijan Robinson goes just crazy because I'm playing against him in fantasy football. I felt that earlier this year. That 200-yard game against the Commanders, I played against him, and it was painful for me in a lot of ways. And Drake London also has that capability of just taking over a game. If you can contain those guys and keep the explosive plays down, you have a great chance of stopping this Falcons offense.
With Drake London, the secondaries, they cannot play passive. They've got to try to get in between him and the ball because his hands are among the best, the strongest in the game. Excellent 50-50 ball guy. Like, he's not going to be beat very often for those contested catches. So you got to get in between him and the ball.
Get some Sauce press man coverage. We might see him this weekend. We might see Sauce Gardner this weekend.
Might just see it.
Thanks for joining us on the Colts Squad Show. Lock us in for your midweek show every Wednesday night, just like you're doing right now at 9 p.m. But don't forget, we are your place for live game recaps following each and every Colts game this season. That includes international games like the one in Germany. We'll be back with you very early on Sunday afternoon to recap the game shortly after Colts Falcons. I think that's a 9:30 kick Eastern time, if I'm not mistaken, right here on the Locked On Colts Network. But until then, keep it locked on Zach and Jake every day on Locked On Colts. Be sure to follow at Locked On Colts on socials. Check out our other great content on YouTube and TikTok, and we will see you next time right here on the Colts Squad Show.